ready to beat your bookmaker? Well, then it's time to follow the model. Welcome back to the Follow the Model podcast. I'm your host, Colin Thaw, founder of ThawBall. We got Gates, a.k.a. Rusty, a.k.a. Rusty Gates on the line. What's up, Russell? Say what up.
How we doing? We're looking to bounce back in week 3. Hope everyone's doing well.
Yeah, so bounce back is right. Model wasn't so bad last week, but also wasn't so good. The record worse than the units lost, as the Chiefs did pull through as your biggest play of the week. Give us a little recap of last week.
Yeah, quick recap. The Chiefs were far and away our biggest play, and they did come through. Game actually ended up being way closer than it should have been. If you want to find out all the details, you can go through to the Substack and find it out there. But yeah, that was our big play. Everything else, not so great, right? A lot of them were smaller plays, didn't come through. The couple that I'll highlight are the Giants. Still was asleep in that first half from the first week. I basically was almost giving up, saying, what the hell happened to this team that I thought I knew? And then the second half, they woke up from the dead, and I was like, that's the team that I thought I knew. So, we obviously, if that happened sooner, if things had changed, they would have covered the spread. At the same time, they were absolute shit the first 6 quarters, so it is what it is. So that was that game. And then the other one, I'll just highlight. Other games, we can go through in detail. We were wrong for a lot of reasons, but the Browns game is one that I'm still pretty bitter about, angry about. I have a million stats about how if that game's played 100 times, like 98, the Browns come on top. So that one I'm not too happy about, but all in all, it's a long season. Got to persevere. You're going to get bad breaks. You got to move through, and let's get on to week 3.
For sure. 2 defensive touchdowns, bitter pill to swallow, but like you said, sometimes that's the way the ball bounces. As for the Giants, I have my own theories. I think that with kind of how preseason has shaped up, maybe they were still in preseason mode. It looked like that. They looked like they were on a different speed than the other teams for the first 6 quarters of the season, but we won't really know. When this podcast comes out, we actually will know a little bit better because you're wearing your Giants jersey. They're playing tonight. This will come out on Friday. Hopefully our G-Men has double-digit or almost double-digit dogs. Take it out. But that's neither here nor there, as that's not a week 3 model play. But what did happen in the model is you do a recalibration every 2 weeks based on the play and based on PFF grades. Can you talk to us a little bit about that process?
Yeah, so I know I talked a little bit about this last week, but I do really start to like weeks, not 2, yes, but more so like 3, 4, 5, 6. Like those are really start to be my favorite weeks because first couple weeks you get a little bit of a feel. What I then do after every 2 weeks throughout the entire season is we recalibrate. And what that means is that I take another look at every single player on every single team, and we give them anywhere from a 0 to 4 point bump. Understand the points aren't going to matter to the audience as much. But essentially what that means is, if this guy's playing out of his shoes and he's a lower graded player, we're going to give him a 4 point bump. That's a big bump, right? That happens across the entire league on every player. Same goes the other way, right? So what ends up happening is it starts averaging it out. Now, we don't want to overcorrect, so we don't want to go over 4 either way. But as the season progresses, we start to see, water kind of finds its level, so to speak, right? So it's very important to making sure that this doesn't stay outdated. Players get better, players get worse, right? They get old. Maybe they didn't feel like working out in the off season. Maybe someone just really stepped up at a great training program. How do we know about these things, right? We just have to let the season play out. So that's how we adjust for all those kinds of things.
Very interesting. So it basically sounds like you're recalibrating, but also not overreacting, trying to find that happy medium. And so is there anything specific that you saw after the first 2 weeks that really jumped out?
There were a couple things. I mean, again, I'm just very focused on the Giants, as of course we had plays on them, and I'm a Giants fan. Clearly, the offensive line is way worse than we thought it was going to be. So that was one that clearly jumped out. Same actually for the Steelers. I will say, though, this is actually a good one to call out because I do think a lot of that is that they played the 49ers and the Browns, 2 of the best 4 defenses in the entire NFL. People are giving Kenny Pickett shit left and right. And, I mean, this guy not only faced the best defenses in the league, but his offensive line wasn't holding up. I do think that the offensive line is going to get a lot better, especially with the pickup that I'm going to call out, Isaac Sumalo. great offensive guard from the Eagles that came over in the offseason. I don't think this guy forgot to play football overnight. I think that they're still gelling as an offensive line unit, and they played the two best defenses, two of the four, maybe the two best in the NFL. Give them some time. They're going to figure it out. And maybe a little bit of preview to who we might be looking at for a bounce back this week.
Okay. Love a little preview. So let's get right into it on that note. Week 3 plays, and we're going to start for the 3rd week in a row. They are a model play, and that is Zach Wilson and the New York Jets.
I cannot quit this guy. I can't do it. The model loves him. I hope everybody knows it's not me, because Zach Wilson is by far the least graded quarterback on this entire model. But I can't quit this team. They're a good team. Look, I think that Dallas has been impressive. I think, a lot of times early in the season, especially a unit like that, they're going to overpower an offense, especially an offensive line that's younger, that's not ready. And that's kind of what we saw there, right? I think you kind of have to throw that out the window, just a little bit like the Giants of last week, although it took the Giants a couple extra quarters. So I think this week with the Jets, listen, we were on the Pats last week. That offense, it's just not there. It's not where you want it to be. Mac hasn't taken the next step. And I don't think they have enough against a Jets team at home to be favored by 3 points. That line to me doesn't make sense. It's a Zach Wilson line. That's all it is. If you match up the teams besides quarterbacks, the Jets are a way better football team. We've been calling them the mediocre Pats all season long. They're the below average Pats. Belichick has lost a step, maybe not as a coach, but definitely as a GM. And, Mac's just not that much better than Zach Wilson. I don't care how bad Zach Wilson is. So when you're getting 3 points at home, you got to take them. We're seeing a lot of value here. And yes, the defense disappointed me last week, but I think they come through here after a bad week and they put it together and realize, hey, we got a big season ahead of us. We got a great team. Let's get back to focus at home. We got a crowd behind us, and let's get a W. Or at worst, it's a close loss, I should say.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that defensive lack of performance was also in the second half, where they had short fields to cover and they still held the Cowboys to field goals in those situations. So the final score might have not reflected the actual play on the field. So again, model back on the Jets.
Well, one other real quick one. It's a great point you just made. One highlight that I saw, I mentioned this in the emails. I didn't really watch much of that game, but one quick highlight was Sauce Gardner had a pick six easy in his hands that he dropped it. And that is what it is, right? That's plays that those things just happen. If he makes that pick six, it's a whole different ballgame. Now I'm not saying we're not talking about last week, but just in terms of like how games can change and shift, we're not going to get bothered by 1 week. That's all. That's
right. And if Sauce Gardner has that pass hit him in the hands again, he's making that play next time. So moving on, again, another team, the model can't quit early in this season, and that's the Dog Pound in Cleveland.
I love the Browns. We love them. Listen, Deshaun Watson, I think it's, again, being overblown. He's clearly not the $250 million quarterback, but everyone needs to get that out of their head. Okay. Like, you need to evaluate him for what he is. And people say this, but they still have that $250 million price tag in the back of their heads when they're looking at every play. He's been fine. He hasn't been good by any means, but he hasn't been horrible. He's been making some good throws. He has some very questionable ones, but he's an average quarterback. And again, with the roster that they have around him, it's plenty enough. I think he's just as good as Ryan Tannehill. They're completely equal to me. I think you trade places with them. They're the same exact teams. And that's what we have this week, right? We have the Browns at home, and we said it from the beginning of the season. We think their entire roster, top to bottom, is maybe the best in the league. So when you get them at home and they're only minus 3 points, to me, this is an easy call. We do have to watch injuries. So that's the big one we're going to call out in this game. Obviously, we've already talked about Jack Conklin being out for the year, the right tackle on the Browns. That's known. The Titans were missing some guys last week, though. On the offensive line, their first-round pick, Peter Skoronski, missed last week. I think he's going to be out again, so I don't think we have to worry too much there. But they also had 2 guys out in the secondary last week, their safety and their corner, Kristen Fulton. So if those 2 guys come back, and then there were a couple guys in the Browns game last week that got injured, Denzel Ward and one of their other corners. So if we go like all the way on the wrong side of all those injuries, we might stay away. But otherwise, by and large, we like this play. We love this roster, and we're not scared of the Titans, right? We're just not.
I hear that. Yeah, another year older for Ryan Tannehill does not scare me either, because even as a youngster, he wasn't very good. So Denzel Ward, like you said, a stud. And on the injury front, a horrific injury to Nick Chubb. We never like to see that, of course, but the model doesn't value running backs highly as it is. And Jerome Ford on ThawBall, we call him Built Ford Tough, look pretty good. So we like to dog pound the model.
And one last comment there. The model's been huge on the Cleveland defense. They were a monster both weeks. Last week, the Steelers won that game down 3, entering the fourth quarter. Their offense had negative 15 yards. All right. I just want everyone to hear that. Hear that again. Negative 15 yards. So this defense is for real. And that was on the road in Pittsburgh. Now they're coming back home to the dog pound. That defense is for real.
Yeah, those 2 defensive touchdowns, like we said, tough pill to swallow. Moving on, though, we're going to Houston. Sorry, it's actually the game is in Jacksonville, but we're taking Houston. Fade, Jags, fade, as the model says. And we're going with the rookie, C.J. Stroud, as he's looked decent in his short NFL career.
He's looked good enough, right? I mean, so we look at the Jags. We fade, Jags, fade. We got what we thought last weekend. I'm not the biggest Mr. Saturday guy, a.k.a. Trevor Lawrence. But look, he's good, right? He's the top 12-ish quarterback. His offensive line is just trash. Until they get Cam Robinson, the right tackle, back, that offensive line cannot hold up. It didn't last week. They put up 9 points. 3 of them were on a muff punt. And I really think under DeMeco Ryans that this Texans defense, if they get these 2 safeties back that were out last week, both starting safeties were out for the Texans. One was from the 49ers. I'm blanking on his name. The other's Jalen Petrie. If they get those 2 guys back, Jimmy Ward, if they get those 2 guys back, this defense is going to be for real. I really think they're going to give him a really tough time. CJ Stroud, again, has been impressive, right? For a rookie in his first 2 starts, at least. He's been moving the ball, put up a ton of yards last week. They're getting 9.5. That's a lot of points against a team I don't think they're not going to put up 30 points. I don't see the Jags doing that. I think the Texans D is going to keep it in check. Also, Laramie Tunsil, one of the best left tackles in the league, should be coming back for the Texans this week. Huge addition to that offensive line for the Texans.
Nice. And that's a good point with Jalen Petrie specifically. He is one of the most unheralded young players in the league, kind of playing in obscurity in Houston, but he's electric. So that could be a big difference maker. All right, moving on. And we got the Commanders, aka still the Redskins, according to you, still the Washington football team, according to me, and they're home against Buffalo.
Call him what you want to call him. This guy Sam Howell might be able to toss the rock. He's impressing me. There were some throws he made last week that were very impressive. If anyone doesn't know the whole history on this guy, he was a potential number 1 overall pick. I mean, he was really graded that high in college at a certain point. And listen, he's obviously not a finished product. He's a young guy, but he's a guy that can move the ball. And we always like this defense. This defense is a top 5 unit for us. They got Chase Young back. I know the Broncos had some big plays last week at home, but coming back now to Washington, they're getting 6.5 points. You know how much we faded Buffalo last year. You saw us fade Buffalo in week 1. Their offensive line, when they get a heavy defensive line like that, like the Jets gave them and like Washington can provide, Josh Allen's going to be in trouble. And on the flip side, Micah Hyde might be out for this one. He missed all of last year. He's questionable for this game. And if Sam Howell's got a healthy Scary Terry, Jahan Dotson, Brian Robinson is running the ball really well. I mean, that's an offense that's at least average at best, right? And so, getting 6.5 at home, I think they cover there. We like this play.
Love it. And yeah, Sam Howell made some tremendous throws. I'm thinking of the touchdown to Scary Terry McLaurin was really impressive.
Unbelievable. What a throw.
Yeah, what a throw. So yeah, always love Howell, dating back to those UNC days. So Sammy Slingham's, baby. Let's see it. So moving on, others to watch. Anything else that we're seeing? Potential plays.
Yeah, we're going to have a few here. Again, this always changes literally day by day. As injuries come out, as inactives come out, it's always going to change. So one we're going to throw at you is the Falcons. We like the Falcons against the Lions. If you can get the 3.5 line, I know it's fluctuating between 3 and 3.5. I wish we got it at 4.5. Would have grabbed it all there. So the Lions thing, what we got to wait on is Taylor Decker. So the left tackle there, he missed last week. If he comes back, we're going to stay away. But if he's out, I like this Falcons team to keep it close. We saw last week this Lions defense they're not up for the task. And I think the Falcons are going to be able to run all over them. Although, Desmond Ridder has a long way to go. That offensive line can push. Bijan is an absolute beast. They have like the old school Titans offense where they're going to grind it out. And they're going to keep the other team's offense off the field, which is exactly what you need to do with Detroit and Jared Goff. Amon-Ra has turf toe. A lot of reasons to like the Falcons, but let's wait and see for Taylor Decker and a couple other smaller injuries on the Falcons side. Quickly, we'll talk about the Chiefs. So the Chiefs line somehow keeps going down now to 11.5, and I haven't seen any injuries or reasons why. I saw it fluctuate from 13.5 to 11.5. I see it at 11.5 now. That's 4 points of value for the model. The big thing for me, which is why we'll probably stay away, is Justin Fields is a backdoor quarterback if I've ever seen one. I mean, that guy is going to put up trash yards and trash fantasy points. He's not a good quarterback. He's just not, but he runs all over the place. And, when they're down 21 or, he's going to put up 2 touchdowns for no good reason. So I'm very wary of that. We'll probably stay away, but want to keep an eye on. Another one is the Eagles. Listen, this Baker Mayfield thing is got to stop. All right. The Eagles, they got a couple of injuries, so we got to watch their injury wire. But we think some of the guys that missed last week are going to come back here. We're big believers in that team. And let's have Baker face a real team, right? The Chicago Bears not a real team. Minnesota Vikings, we saw what happened with that defense last week. Everyone needs to settle down with Baker. Even though the line is a little bit ridiculous right now. If that ever got to -4, it's at 4.5. If it gets to 4, I'm taking it. It's at that number, though, where we're going to wait and see. And then real quick, the Steelers, talked about it just before. I mean, they faced the 2 best defenses of maybe in the NFL, Cowboys and Jets, you throw in there. Not giving up on that team. I still think they're a very solid team, especially on the offensive side. You saw what Pickens can do, right? Like, I mean, the guy is super, super talented, and I'm fading the Raiders. I'm fading them all season. I've been fading them for years. It's a disorganized franchise. You saw all the Chandler Jones stuff. I mean, that franchise just is not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna follow it. They actually got up to +3. So, I mean, we're really, really excited about that number. The big one, though, is Minka Fitzpatrick. So he got hurt last game. If he's out, that does make it tough because he's huge for that defense. So we'll wait and see there.
For sure. Yeah, George Pickens is an incredible player. I mean, that run after the catch last week was just showcased his tremendous ability. So love that call out. And yeah, there you have it. Week 3 model. Stay close with the Substack, with the newsletter. That's how you're going to stay close with all these plays and get the lines. And I loved how you called out last time where there's advantageous lines at different books. So really keep an eye out for that. The model, or actually Gates will be calling that out. That's not really the model calling that out, but Gates will be providing that info. So stay close to the Substack, stay close to the model, and let's turn this boat around. Big comeback in week 3.
Yeah, we feel it coming. We're going to have a big week. Let's start off with the Giants. Who knows? I mean, come on. It's a short week. We can do it tonight. Everyone's going to be laughing at me tomorrow when they hear this, but let's go.
To be clear, that's not a model. Let's start off with the Giants. No. Let's start off with the Giants as Giants fans. So we're Correct. Just going to clear the air there. Not a model play, but go G-Men.
I will say the model is seeing a little bit of value, not enough to ever make it a play. But I will throw it out there. They do think 10.5 is a big number. I will just say it. I do think it is a big number, not an official play, something I keep an eye on.
Fair enough. So it sounds like if you really have an itch to scratch, maybe go for it, but not an official model play. And there you have it. That's week 3. This is Follow the Model, and we're signing off.